All right, it's gone 6 o'clock, so we will start tonight's ordinary meeting of council. I would like to start by acknowledging that we meet on Wajak Noongar Butcher, Nala Kadich Wajak Mort, Kayan Kadak Nija Walilat Butcher, Wejinang Wajak Kadajan, Wedniting Bula Yeah. I would also like to acknowledge a number of former councillors who have joined us in the gallery. Former councillor Henty Farrar and former councillor Bill Massey. Welcome tonight. We have a full complement of attendance tonight. No apologies, no leaves of absence at the moment. Applications for leaves of absence. I have one from Councillor Kamado from the 22nd of June to the 31st of July. So I'll move that. Get a seconder from Councillor Graham. All those in favour? Yeah, I want to go to Italy too. Were there any other leaves of absence, councillors? Nope, looking good. Okay, do we have any disclosures of interest by members on tonight's agenda? No. There are some responses to previous public questions taken on notice in the agenda papers from the 22nd of February. That will take us, I think, through to public question time. And for those in the gallery, most of you have been here before, 3 minutes, please speak into the microphone. We'll set a timer so it does go when you get to the end of your 3 minutes. It's being recorded and it's for broadcast, so you do need to speak into the microphone. You won't necessarily be on camera or identifiable, but obviously it would be good if you could introduce yourself at the beginning of your speaking. So I will work on the list that I have in front of me, starting with Mike Males.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, councillors. Can you hear that?
You're great.
I must say that this is something I don't usually do, but it's something I feel very strongly about. And it's not about the voice. It's not about politics. It's about spending ratepayers' money where it is most beneficial to the ratepayers, which I consider is not educating the public on the voice. Leave it to the federal parliament. It's their agenda. We only need to look around Fremantle City Centre to see where money should be spent. Something needs to be done about filling the empty shops, cleaning up the urine smell down the side streets and multi-storey car park stairwells. South Fremantle used to have manicured parks. They now resemble what I think to be cow paddocks. It's also had a public ablution. It now has portables. Streets used to be swept regularly. The list goes on. I can only compare what other coastal towns have done, like Esperance, Dunsborough, Scarborough. We don't even come close. So we get back to, does educating the public on the voice to Parliament justify spending $35,500 of the ratepayers' money? I could go on for a long time, but I think I've made my point. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for coming down tonight. Laurie Bugeja. Can you educate me on how? Bugeja.
Yeah, Laurie Bugeja.
Thanks, Laurie.
I'll just give you a quick rundown on a bit of my background. I've been a trades hall councillor for 4 years, a union organiser for quite a few years, president of quite a few clubs, etc. on that one. And what I'm about is fairness. So I'll just start, and I've got quite a few questions there. Is the council aware that every second case in the magistrates' court is a neighbour dispute? This is new. 2, the word may in the Building Act. Unfairness of the word may in the Building Act and used by this council to get away with doing anything about the Building Act as it stands in the law. They just say, go away and seek legal advice. It cost me $30,000. And by the way, when you're going with a boundary dispute and somebody's built on your land It isn't held in the Magistrates Court, it is held in the Supreme Court, which costs you a lot more money. People on a mortgage cannot afford this type of thing, all right? And the council are guilty of using the word may in my account. It cost me $30,000 and a lot of pain. It's putting neighbours against neighbours in courts around Australia and Western Australia. Why am I denied? Number 3, why am I denied Council Policy 1.3, which says that if somebody builds next door to you, the plans are shown? Now that makes common sense. I wasn't. Number 4, running with a councillor, Jeremy Thompson, read trees on a verge on the 18th of January, 5 months to be able to have the trees trimmed. Went through 2 councillors. The first councillor didn't last the job. The second person that came in was Jeremiah Thompson. Now, this person, we had quite a dispute out the front of my house where these trees were, and it just went from there. And I'll go a bit further. 5, and this is where we come to Jeremiah Thompson. Officer of the Council of Fremantle, and he's with the streetscapes and verges. Now, he says to my neighbour in an email sent from the council, which stands up in a court not very long after, I'm intimidating and abusive. Now, I've just told you my background, and I'm nothing like that. Now, that happened where he sent this email into a VRO that was caused by a neighbour dispute, which I took my neighbour to court for a VRO, and this was used against me coming from a councillor. 6, is the mayor to the mayor. Are you aware that I sent 3 emails to your office trying to get a meeting with you? I was sent a reply saying that Andrew Turin, who's the compliance officer, he came in to see. Now, he answered one of my questions, which was finally answered after quite a while, and no other questions were answered. That's 6.
We have
Now,
come to the end of our 3 minutes and a bit. I'm going to ask
I haven't got far to go.
Yeah, and we might want you to submit these. There's quite a lot of questions and quite a lot of detail here, so we might get them from you in hard copy if that's possible as well.
I might be able to do that.
Thank you.
Just quickly on the 7th and 8th, that an email from Rachel Pemberton saying send all the information on the problems you're having. I tried to send them on the 18th of the 2nd, 22. On the 20th of the 2nd, 22, which is a couple of days later, I received an email from Rachel Pemberton saying she was going on leave from the 20th of the 2nd right through to the 2nd of the 10th. I had nobody else to speak to. Sorry, I've got that on an email still.
Look,
anyhow,
we do need
the other thing is that up to number 9, are you aware that it's somebody else is masquerading, and my next door neighbour is him, Luke Whelan, is saying he's the mayor of Fremantle?
Okay, well,
I've got.
He's a brave guy.
Yes, he is a brave guy.
Thank you for all of that, and we'll just take, if we can, some notes from you.
I'll just pass.
Thank you. If you can just hand those to the officers, that would be best. If you can just hand those to Melody over here. You need to, yeah.
Cool. On the word, mate.
Thank you. All right. The next speaker I've got is Bill Massey.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, fellow elected members and officers. Thank you for your time. Elected members, do I need to recall or remember you that you are actually elected to work for the people of Fremantle? You're not elected as representatives for the state or the federal government. So my question is, why is this council considering giving an amount of money towards the campaign for the yes vote? Whether it be 35,000, 75,000, any amount, that money could be utilised better within Fremantle for the benefit of the Fremantle people. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I think we'll let that question be answered in debate. Henty Farrar.
Good evening, councillors. Great to be back in the decision-making heart of Fremantle. Farah, as in Jarrah, yeah, right. Today, so I want to address the voice. I've got a statement. We learned today that the federal government are going to fund a sort of a neutral information campaign, so that's quite topical to what I'm going to say. So to begin the statement, passing resolutions at council meetings is one thing, and it doesn't cost anything. Council did such a thing in 2018 in support of the Uluru Statement. The matter should rest there. The Commonwealth will be holding a referendum later this year, and every person will be able to express their individual views by voting. The Commonwealth Government may or may not fund the campaign for yes or no. It's a federal matter. Funding a campaign on the question is simply not the business of local government authorities. With so much repair and construction work urgently required on footpaths, roads, council buildings, we've heard of parks, the city just can't afford it. They can't afford the illegitimate expenditure, as I believe it is. Delving into the Local Government Act, as I often like to do, Part 3 of Local Government Act 1995, setting out the functions of local government under the general functions at subsection 1, right at the very beginning of the Act, talking about the functions of local government. The general function of local government is to provide for the good government of persons in the district. Spending $35,000 on a Commonwealth referendum is simply not appropriate use of council funds, and it's certainly not providing for the good government of persons in Fremantle. So, in summary, my statement is that as a ratepayer, I've got a financial interest in this. I do not support the spending of any of my rates monies on this education campaign for a federal issue. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farrar. Andrew Loabekis is next.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. I think many of the residents and ratepayers have pretty much outlined the sentiment of the community as far as spending $35,500 on a federal, what is in effect a federal campaign. The irony is not lost on me either that as from today, 12 months ago, I was asking a question in the chamber and as a ratepayer, I attempted to ask several questions pertinent to items that were on an agenda off an FPOL meeting. Surprisingly, tonight it's another FPOL meeting that we're talking about with The Voice, but on the 23rd of March 22, Mayor Fitzharding refused to allow me to ask my questions. To this date, even though I've written to the CEO and the city, I haven't had any answers as to under what procedures or under the Act as to why I couldn't ask that particular question on homelessness. I also wanted to ask a couple of questions in regards to process. When I've read the agenda for this voice argument, I could see that a Yes Alliance has been formed and as a registered organisation, and is listed as being one of the organisation that the city is going to spend some or all of that $35,000. So I would like to know that, when did this go to tender? Question one. Question two, where was the tender advertised? 3, how many respondents were there? 4, where can a copy of the tender proposal be found? And 5, what is the scope of the proposal? Who was on the selection panel? Obviously, the council has its own processes in regards to tenders, and I even think under the Local Government Act 1995 requires local government to go to tender. Now, this hasn't even been voted on tonight, yet it's proposed that the Yes Alliance, registered organisation, is already going to receive funds. So I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Thank you. I will take that question into the debate and perhaps ask the director for a response to it during the debate. The final speaker is Jemima Williamson Wong.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jemima Williamson Wong, and tonight I'd also like to speak to the city's position in supporting an Indigenous voice to Parliament. As a young person raised in Fremantle, I have always appreciated how progressive and proactive the Fremantle Council is regarding First Nations equity. It's crucial that this progressive spirit and momentum continue with the upcoming referendum. It was incredible to see the council approach reconciliation so earnestly by supporting the Uluru Statement from the Heart in 2018. And it is amazing that the city has formed the Walyulup Reconciliation Action Plan, the whole time ensuring that First Nations people are invited into the planning and drafting processes. As Councillor Rachel Pemberton noted in the Herald, this RAP includes a commitment to both promote reconciliation and also to continue to publicly support the Uluru Statement. I understand that some people are suggesting this isn't within the sphere of local government, but I disagree. The voice is exactly what local government should endorse and support. The Uluru Statement aspires to an Australia where Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have equitable treatment and outcomes in our communities. It is about the inequity that exists within all communities, including our own here in Fremantle. Supporting the voice through funding demonstrates that the council really is serious about reconciliation and the positive outcomes that this would have for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here in our community. There has been discourse around the fact that there are already a number of members of Parliament who are Indigenous and the funding that First Nations people already receive. And while these facts are true, they fail to provide the full context. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are proportionately the most incarcerated people on the planet. And in WA, 78% of kids in detention are Aboriginal, with 50% of the Specialist Homeless Services clients also First Nations. Clearly, the approach that has been taken so far is not working. As the Uluru Statement presents, the voice provides an opportunity for the government to make policies with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people rather than for. This is an approach that the City of Fremantle has already adopted through programs such as the RAP and One Day, and I feel proud to live in Fremantle because of these values. The proposed expenses are consistent with the established values of this city, and I think it would be remiss of the council to ignore this invitation from First Nations people to walk alongside them for a better future that we all stand to benefit from. Thank you.
Thank you. And that brings us to the end of public question time, and I'll remind the gallery that I'm not sure, but come up here and tell us your name and the matter you'd like to speak on. Jump on up. I'll add Ian as well. Yeah. I've got Ian on a different list as well.
Do you have my registration somewhere?
It's fine. Go for it. What was your name?
Peter Pankak. I'm from Hilton, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've been reading through that summary of the voice to Parliament point of agenda here, and what sort of struck me here is this is repeat a number of times, or at least a couple of times, and suggested and implied. This is clear. It is clear from the summary that the proponents present the $35,000 spending as unique opportunity for the council to take leadership position in promoting the voice to parliament. This opportunity to take that leadership position phrase takes me back to some years back when I was resident in the socialist communist Czechoslovakia, where leaders were politically and ideologically very savvy, but could not run a grocery store because that was beyond their capacity. Because why I'm saying that, because money handling and be politically savvy, they are two different things. For these people, the money could always be found somewhere, and it was basically just figures on the paper. But we all know how it ended up over there. They got broke like over 30 years ago, and not like one country, basically multiple countries, because this did not lead anywhere. So from that point, or from that experience rather, I take it quite personally. You using me as a sort of cash cow, as a ratepayer to enhance your political and personal profiles, because it's my money, like ratepayers' money spending, and here it's not like money coming from the air or from the trees. It's from my ratepayers' money. So, I know, we all know that Fremantle Council serves as a platform for starting for platform for career politicians. I have no problem with that, and if you or anybody doing that with their own money, it's perfectly fine. They've got my vote for that. But why should I finance that? It's like enhancing the council's or individual's political profile. So, yeah, that's basically my point, that from your perspective, you're showing your preference of spending my ratepayers' money is in showing political leadership. And I as ratepayer, see preference in spending my money in running the services and maintaining the city. And I can see it like I'm living in Hilton, seeing everywhere on the streets, there's, it's not well maintained, and there is a problem.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
Thanks to the gallery. We will keep quiet while other people are talking. And Ian Kerr, you had a question on FPOL 23038.
Thank you, Mayor and Councillors. Yes, I want to speak on the high voltage event, and I do so not just as a local resident, but also as a transport planner and a former local government councillor. The agenda states that the provision of sponsorship will be subject to approval of the event by the City of Fremantle. So I ask, how were the high voltage organisers able to deliver a detailed traffic management plan before consideration by FPOL or Council? And is the City of Fremantle happy with the distributed traffic management plan, and particularly the lack of consultation during its development? The plan says, I quote, additional parking will be available for residents on Fremantle Park on event day with a shuttle bus in place to move residents where required. Nothing at all about how the shuttle bus will actually get to houses in South Fremantle, or how someone at home might actually summon the bus. Nothing either about whether the bus will be accessible for people with disabilities. Is the City of Fremantle happy with the local total lack of consideration of how people attending the event will get there? Or once there, if coming by car, where they are going to park? Now, even assuming the PTA doesn't close the Fremantle line that weekend, and we all know they have a habit of doing so when there are events in Fremantle, there will be no cat bus, and the nearest buses will be along Hampton Road. How will all these buses get to and from Fremantle Station to Hampton Road. Road closures preclude the use of South Terrace and Ray Avenue, and the nearest alternative is Queen Street High Street, turning on a difficult crossfall onto Hampton Road. Has the PTA actually been consulted on this? During the hours of the event, there are over 120 bus services in each direction that will need to access Hampton Road and will only be able to do so via that intersection. In addition, High Street already has 42 buses in each direction through that difficult intersection. Many of the non-local people attending will inevitably come by car, and yet the city is giving away over 1,000 car bays in the in-kind sponsorship on a day when Fremantle is already at its busiest. Every street west of Hampton Road will be no access for motor vehicles except possibly for local traffic, but there is nothing about how this will be enforced or how local traffic will be identified. So I ask the question, where are the thousands of people coming to the event by car going to park? And just to finish, if I lived on Hampton Road or in the area immediately east of Hampton Road, or indeed in the South Beach end of North Coogee, I'd be putting together my own parking management plan, and it would probably include stingers to stop people parking across my driveway. Thank you.
Thank you, and a very well-timed 3 minutes. I have asked the Director of City Business to give a response to that one, given that the other debates tonight may go on for a while. So I'll over to you.
Through the Mayor. So the Perth Festival has actually developed quite an extensive traffic management plan in consultation with Main Roads and Police. We've received that traffic management plan and we're currently reviewing it. I understand also that the Perth Festival will be engaging with affected businesses and residents over the coming weeks to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, and we'll leave the remainder of anything on that for the debate. So I will reorganise the agenda for those of you in the gallery so that you're aware. So we will take the Voice to Parliament item as the first item in the agenda, but we've got a few other things to get through first. So petitions, I'm not aware of any petitions being presented tonight. Deputations, special deputations and presentations. I believe Councillor Moughlin has something he wanted to do.
Thank you. So I just wanted to provide Council with a bit of an update on a meeting that I had on Monday with the captain of the Japanese icebreaker Shiraise. And the captain was accompanied by the Naval Attaché and Deputy Consul General. So the Shiraise was in port for its return voyage to Japan after spending 5 months in Antarctica, completing important work in regards to climate change and understanding those impacts. The vessel carries 180 crew and 70 researchers. And when we spoke about the importance of the work that they were doing and the relationship between Australia, Western Australia, Fremantle and Japan. The vessel was actually returning to Japan to one of Fremantle's sister cities, Yokosuka. Sorry. So on their visits, on their journey to Antarctica, so the vessel comes through Fremantle circa November most years. They take on provisions here in Fremantle to support their 5-month stay in Antarctica. And on Monday night, the crew were going to take advantage of Fremantle hospitality, their first opportunity for a night out since leaving in November last year, but pity it was a Monday night because it might have been a little bit quiet. I did see a number of the Japanese crew on the train the following day, moving in and around Fremantle as well, so a welcome addition to town, and they presented us with a number of gifts at that time, and primarily to share with Council as well, this plaque that we received of their visit this year.
Thank you, Councillor Moughlin, and thank you for deputising for that. It was much appreciated. All right, we need to confirm the minutes from the last ordinary meeting of Council from the 22nd of February, so I'll move that we confirm the minutes. Seconded by Councillor Pemberton. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Do we have any elected member communication? Okay, no, that does not look like it. So that goes to reports and recommendations from committees. I'm in two minds here. I know we've got a couple of people in the audience for PC 23034, the CAD Street item, that I suspect might be fairly quick. So I'm thinking we'll quickly go to that item so that we can send them home, and then to the voice item. Councillors, I hope you'll back me up on this being a fairly quick discussion. I will perhaps throw to Councillor Jones as Chair of Planning to move this and introduce where we're at.
Well, I'll move the alternative recommendation from Councillor Lorber.
Well, I imagine he might second that. Is it an amendment or an alt rec?
It's an alternative recommendation.
Yep.
Well, it's an amendment to the recommendation, but it makes
the recommendation as amended by proposed amendment by Councillor Lorber.
Sorry. The proper way to do it then is probably to move the officer's recommendation and then for Councillor Lorber
might be easier.
Amendment. But I'll just by way of introduction, the item was about.
I'll just take it that Councillor Lorber has seconded. You're moving that? Yep.
I'll move the officer's recommendation. Yeah. So just by way of background, the item came to council for an overheight fence, and the officer's recommendation was to reduce the height. After hearing from the residents, the committee did not agree with the officer's recommendation, but nobody had asked for an alternative recommendation, so as a merely technicality, it has to come to council. The committee was in favour of the fence remaining, but we hadn't a recommendation before us to do so.
Excellent. Thank you for that introduction. Perhaps we'll go to Councillor Lorber's amendment.
Well, can I just, shouldn't have seconded it. I just want to ask, is this appropriate as an amendment, or should be an alternate recommendation? Amendment's fine.
It's an amendment.
Great. Yeah, the amendment just basically maintains the status quo. It keeps the dog in the people's yard, and but won't let the dog escape. So it just lets them have their fence.
You're moving that one. We
yeah,
need
sorry,
a seconder for
that
one. Councillor Jones seconding that one. Any debate on the amendment? Councillor Pemberton.
Look, I will support this, but I just wanted to express, I guess, my frustration at not being provided with proper understanding of what the impact on the neighbour is, because I'm assuming the neighbour is the one who opposes it, and we've seen a very nice visual about how lovely it looks from the applicant's side, and of course they're in favour of it because they've designed it to suit them. But to understand what the impact is from the person who is impacted and dissenting, and I guess the fact that they haven't contacted us, they haven't asked us to view the site or provided an image, means that I guess they don't care too much. But I think just in terms of good practice with this sort of thing is actually to be able to see what the actual impact is, what the concern is from the person being impacted by the applicant.
Fair comment. Councillor Graham.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. Look, I supported the officer's recommendation at committee, and I still do. I don't see why the neighbour on the south, who's done nothing wrong, he just happens to be living there, and he has to put up with a fence that is not within the policy, and with a dog that allegedly jumps this fence and causes him a problem. So he's the one who's getting all the problems. Yet now we're not putting anything over to the applicant to say fix your dog up and keep the fence at the allowed height. So to me, it's pretty basic. The dog will be trained; it'll stop jumping the fence, and the fence can be lowered to 500 mil, which is standard and allowable under the policy. So I won't be supporting Councillor Lorber's amendment.
All right. Further on the amendment, Councillor Archibald. Councillor Graham, I'll get you to turn your mic off.
Oh, yes, sorry.
One on the right, yeah.
I think it's 11 centimetres we're talking about here, and if it keeps a large dog in, then I'm quite willing to. What is the phrase? Have due regard to the regulations, and in this case, I think it's a variation that's not excessive. So I do hope that the neighbours at some point see it that way, and hopefully the two sets of neighbours can get along for other reasons. Thank you.
I tend to agree with you, Councillor Archibald, and I think while there was a procedural reason for this delay, it's given an additional period of time for the neighbours to raise any concerns and share with their experience with us that we haven't been given. So they've had opportunity and it hasn't been taken. Anyone further, or Councillor Lawver, did you want to close on the amendment? All right, so I'll put Councillor Lawver's amendment. All those in favour? And those against? Councillor Graham against. And back to the item as now amended. I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour and against, and that's carried unanimously. So you can keep your fence. Okay, you're welcome to stay for the remainder of the meeting, but we'll forgive you for going as well. So we're going to go to the Voice to Parliament item. Now, Councillor Thompson has moved an amended version of the officer's recommendation, has put that on the, he hasn't moved it yet, has proposed it. And in consultation with Councillor Archibald as chair of FPOL and Councillor Lawver, who's also involved in drafting that, I'm of a mind, and I was involved in drafting it as well, I'm of a mind to move the version that you see on your screen now to begin the debate. So unless I hear any vehement objection to that, it does much better, I think, capture the discussion that we had at FPOL and reflects the kind of general sentiment of the room. So I'll give you a minute to read it, but that's certainly the way I wanted to go, was to move that. Yep, so I'm looking to Councillor Thompson to second that, if I move that to open debate, given that it's your proposed amendment, but thank you for collaborating with a number of other people to get to that. You may.
Just in terms of process, if we're moving this instead of the original item, does that mean we only get one opportunity to speak in terms of we won't be coming back to as the item amended it,
Correct. Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Good clarification for everyone too. Yeah. Okay, and my intention also, just to flag now, would be to move this to a vote in parts. So parts 1, 2 and 3, I'll move separately to a vote. Yep. Okay, do we have someone who wants to open the debate? It's moved and seconded. Go, Councillor Pemberton. I think Councillor Kamada, your light was on as well.
I'm happy to follow.
Okay.
All right. Look, sorry, I'm reading because I have made some notes. So I'm not going to reiterate what I was published in the Fremantle Herald in my thinking aloud, but or the very compelling case that was put forward by Professor Fiona Stanley. Rather, tonight I'm going to address some of the issues that have been raised in the community through emails and discussions, and some of my colleagues here on the chamber. So just a reminder in terms of why we're supporting the yes vote specifically, in terms of rather than just a discussion about the whole issue with a balanced yes no. So the Fremantle Council did vote unanimously in 2018 to support the Uluru Statement from the Heart, which included a voice to Parliament. It was reaffirmed from the through the Walyalup Reconciliation Action Plan. That did go out to community consultation. There was an opportunity for people to have a say on all the different actions within that, and it was adopted unanimously in 2019. A couple of key actions that were listed and adopted in the Reconciliation Action Plan was Action 5, which was to promote reconciliation through our sphere of influence. That obviously is the local community, because that's the sphere in which we work. Secondly, it was relating to Action 12.4, which specifically said to continue to publicly support the Uluru Statement from the Heart and host and or support events that explain the rationale behind it. So it was spelt out in full in 2019, and therefore the item before us is wholly in line with that. I also note that just last night, the town of Victoria Park moved a motion to support the Uluru Statement from the Heart and the Voice to Parliament. I met one of their councillors today, and he was very proud of the fact that the town of Vic Park is the most recent council to support this issue. I also note that in December 2022, just last year, late last year, 38 mayors from across Australia issued a joint statement in support of the upcoming referendum and constitutional recognition of Indigenous Australians. The mayors that came from across 7 different states and territories, also committed to civic education of their communities about the importance of the referendum. In their statement, they actually stated, as local leaders, we are committed to building awareness in our local communities about the upcoming referendum. Local government must play an important role in handling civic forums, promoting dialogue, and providing a flat platform for Indigenous voices to be heard in this debate. We believe that a successful referendum can be a unifying achievement for Australia. I'm really grateful that that collection of local government representatives made that statement. I also note that the Local Government Association of New South Wales stated that councils, as the closest level of government to their communities, can be instrumental in this campaign and are well placed to build support for the recommendation. So here in WA, Walga also adopted a position to actively support the yes vote in the upcoming referendum. It has even produced a local government support kit with a guide on what WA local governments can do to support the campaign, which includes many of the things that are included in the report put forward by officers. So I'm not sure how the city is supposed to do these things without any resources. And to give you some context, $35,000 doesn't go far in local government, especially not in infrastructure. You know, you might get a metre of paving. I also note that the city currently spends approximately $1.9 million a year on CBD cleaning. This equates to $36,500 a week. So for the same cost of cleaning our CBD for 1 week, we can be part of a really important national conversation. I think that this is something that our community wants. I know that this is something that our RAP reference group wants. And I think this will deliver a much better community Australia-wide and here in Fremantle.
Thank you, Councillor Pemberton. Councillor Kamada?
Yeah, thank you very much. And yeah, thank you, Councillor Pemberton, for your words. Thank you to Councillor Thompson and Lorva for the work you've done to put up those amendments. And I'd like to say that I fully support the intent of the council, beginning with the 2018 resolution supporting the Statement of the Heart and the work that the RAP does. I think the council has sent a powerful symbolic message, which I support, and I'm happy to be involved in collaborating with the community in order to achieve a better understanding of what the voice to Parliament will look like. However, as I expressed at FPOL, I do not believe that we should be spending ratepayers' dollars on this, particularly in the current climate. As highlighted by the announcement at federal level today of a bipartisan deal to set up the structures for holding this referendum, there are other ways for people to obtain funding in order to promote their view, in addition to the information pamphlets that the Australian Electoral Commission will mail. This is a Commonwealth referendum, and I do not think that ratepayers should be funding campaigns advocating one way or the other. I'm happy that we can vote on this in parts, because as I said, I'm fully supportive of making a statement, but I'm not comfortable at all with spending ratepayers' dollars. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kamada. Councillor Busick.
Thank you. I'm not going to go over some of the reasons that that was given in support of the Voice to Parliament motion at FPOL. Just touch on the Uluru Statement, the RAP program. Councillor Pemberton, in her article in the Herald, talked about cultural awareness and the systemic structure disadvantage and disempowerment and so forth. Just for the record, I don't think we should be terribly proud of our community consultation. I don't think Fremantle does that very well. We only reach out to a minority of people who can use certain tools of communication. So I think that the average person in Fremantle would have no problems with the reasons stated in that first part of the motion, except the fact that it's only talked to itself, and that's the yes vote. However, the average person in Fremantle does have a problem when elected members act outside the remit of providing basic services and the expenditure of their money. In the past couple of weeks since FPOL, there has been a steady stream of emails and calls expressing their disappointment. Our employers, or our boss, or our bosses, are the ratepayers and residents of Fremantle, and they have provided a clear feedback, and we ought to listen. I work in the HR space, and I can tell you, if an employee disregards the employer for a period of time, they usually don't hold their job. So basically, you'll hear the word basic service delivery. And that is our remit. That's what we're elected for. Some other councillors might have a different point of view, and you're entitled to it. For me, it was about basic services and representation of ratepayers and residents. So when they give me feedback, they have my attention. For example, I wonder if you know that Fremantle's overall tree canopy cover is 15%. Just a mere 3% of the trees are greater than 8 metres. The least green suburb is Samson, with a canopy cover of 13%, and the greener suburb is Hilton, with a canopy of over 24%. Now, these stats come from the WA Tree Canopy Advocates, and they advocate that we've got to do a lot better. We've got to do 30% by 2050. That's double for Fremantle. Imagine what we could do with 35,500 investment in trees in the city. There is a budget item before us this evening which seeks to cut back on sweeping the streets of Fremantle by $87,000. Can you imagine what our city would look like if we spent the 87 plus another 35,500 on cleaning up the streets? We have neglected the oral history of Fremantle in the new civic centre. Imagine the tourist and local interest in our city with an investment of 35,500 by restoring the once highly prized oral history section in our library. What about the return we would get on with an investment of 35,500 into our heritage presence in the city? We could collaborate with local schools, historical groups and residents who have historical projects like pocket parks, landscaping projects, and dare I say the random acts of wild gardening throughout our suburbs. What about the work of our local Sean Heffron, who started Mr. Perfect, a mental health initiative for men? Imagine what could be done with 35,500 in expanding that service. What about the commemoration of our community heroes and an annual heritage budget that demonstrates we mean business? Our town hall, our heritage jewel, imagine what 35,500 could achieve as the first injection of a much needed maintenance. What about our community sporting clubs and ovals who operate on shoestring budgets and achieve so much? Imagine what could be achieved with 35,500. I disagree. 35,500, when you put it into the context of community and basic services, is significant. No one is going to miss out. The federal government is gearing up to provide plenty of fair and balanced opportunities for us all. We will only miss out if we do not engage and participate. And I know we've touched on this, but the breaking news today was that the federal government has confirmed, number one, a deal has been struck to move ahead with the legislation necessary to set up the referendum on the voice to Parliament. Number two, the opposition has agreed to support the bill in the Senate, with amendments including a physical pamphlet outlining both the yes and no cases and some funding changes. Number 3, there is also set to be official recognition of yes and no campaign organisations, as well as strengthening opportunities for people to vote in remote communities. Number 4, the mobile polling period for remote communities will be extended to 19 days, and a greater number of identification methods will be accepted to enrol or update enrolment in order to increase voter turnout. Number 5, there will be an advertisement blackout for 3 days before the referendum. Number 6, the disclosure threshold for donations to entities will be frozen at $15,200. Well, the federal government what would they, we consider 35,500 as insignificant. The feds say that 15,200 is a good number. A second bill, and the last point, the second bill that sets out the wording of the constitutional change is expected to go to federal cabinet as early as Monday, before being introduced to Parliament late next week. There's a lot happening. It is a federal issue. If this council is truly about community engagement, then the federal government has our back with the voice to Parliament. If we proceed this evening with the motion, then we are only interested in a conversation with ourselves. In my view, it is undemocratic and un-Australian. I'm nearly there. The CEO of the City of Rockingham has no problem making a decision that this issue does not belong in the local government remit. In conclusion, I put to Mr. Dougal that Division 4 of the Local Government Act, Section 8.35, misapplication of funds and property, makes this motion illegal, especially now that we know that is on record that the federal government and Parliament has taken the lead. Any duplication of resources by local government in funding issues that is the domain of state and federal governments is not permitted. Mr. Dougal, you have been asked to review this section of the Act this week. I'll say your name one more time. Mr. Dougal, does this motion contravene the Local Government Act of 1995? It's a yes or no answer.
Thank you, Councillor Visick. I will give the CEO leave to reply to that however he wishes.
Through the chair, I thank Councillor Visick for her questions. Under the Local Government Act, the roles and functions of a local government are to make decisions based on what they think is best for the people of the district. The Part 8 of the Act is how we apply our resources and whether or not they've been approved properly under the Local Government Act.
Thank you. Okay, the next speaker is Councillor Grimm.
Thank you. Councillor Visick and I are both interested in the heritage that a decision like this means for the city and the ability to apply our funds to protect and to promote heritage. I just have a much broader view of what heritage means for our community. Goes back a lot further and it's more inclusive than our recent heritage. In contemplating this issue and whether it's the right decision for council, whether it's consistent with what we've said to our community that we do and what we're about. I went to look at the City of Fremantle Strategic Community Plan, which was adopted by council in 2016. It predates our decision making about the voice. But the plan really sets out clearly our vision for a city that's welcome, celebrates all people and cultures, a city that cares for the well-being of our people and the environment we share, a city that thrives on diversity, and a city that values character, culture and heritage and identifies that as something that we will really promote and focus effort on. It's one of our specific goals and objectives. So for me, this is something that's been a long time coming, that's consistent with the plan. That is what we commit to our community that we'll do and should be guiding all of our decision making. I also know that 35,000 kind of sounds like a lot of money. Jenny and I are kind of doing some calculations and we think it's about 0.0004 of our budget or some number, something like that. And by my calculations, it's $2 a day for $2 a year for our ratepayers. So I'm satisfied that that is a reasonable investment in a conversation and in informing our community. It doesn't mean that people will have to vote differently. It's not politicizing it. It is having a conversation in the context of Walyalup, in the context of the Whadjuk community. What does this voice mean? What does this voice mean for creating greater diversity and greater participation of all members of our community in our process, in our governance, in our city? So I'm really proud to be part of a council that thinks that that is important, that brings this forward, and happy to support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Groom. Councillor Lang.
Thanks. I just have questions at this point. First one, I just wanted a point of clarification on item 1, that the call to action is from the action plan or is a call to action from the working group? I just wanted to clarify that point, if anyone can.
I'll go to the director on that.
Through the chair, it's certainly a call to action from the plan, as articulated by Councillor Pemberton already in Action 12.4. It is also backed by the Walyalup Reconciliation Action Plan reference group through their subgroups, and then taken up through to the formal channels to the actual formal meeting of the Reconciliation Action Group. So backed by both.
Thanks. That's the first question.
My interpretation of that would be if we were to add the word and group in there, it would still be consistent. We don't need to, but yeah.
That's my first question. And then is the group, in terms of the awareness campaign, is the working group supporting an awareness campaign on the referendum, or are they supporting an awareness campaign on the yes vote?
I'll give that to the director again to respond.
Sorry, Councillor Lang, can you just repeat that question for me?
Sorry, in item 1, if there's an action plan, does the action plan, is it supporting, so I'll read it out of my notes here, it's easier.
Thank you.
Is the plan or working group supporting the proposed awareness campaign on the referendum or on a yes vote?
That's a tricky question. So is the...
Well, we've got here supporting a voice to Parliament. So I'm wondering, what does the campaign look like? Does it say there's a referendum happening, or does it say vote yes?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Sorry, can I just go back?
What are we making people aware of, a referendum or a way to vote?
Sorry, I think I'm misunderstanding your question. Just could you clarify one more time? It's, my hearing doesn't help, I'm afraid. But
we're saying through the provision of a community education and awareness in the lead up to the referendum, what are we supporting? We're supporting the voice to Parliament, which is in the Uluru Statement, so we're supporting that?
Yes.
Okay, so we're supporting the yes campaign?
Yes, we are.
Not the referendum?
Yeah, we're supporting the yes campaign. Sorry, I just had to get it clear in my head.
Thanks for clarifying. There are 2 questions.
Get you to turn that one off. I just want to make a point that was made in the gallery. We're not providing funding to any campaign. So we're supporting the voice to Parliament because that's what the group is saying, but we're not giving money to any campaign. It is procuring, hasn't been procured yet, it will be procuring in the future a consultant to do some work around civics education.
Supporting the notion of a voice in Parliament.
Well, that's the position of the council.
Yeah, it is. I agree. I just wanted to clarify. There are my two questions. I'll come back. Thanks.
Councillor Lorber.
Thank you. I was just going to point out that little bit of information that you just did, because that's a big sticking point in the community, that this was never about giving any donation to any campaign. And there's just heaps of misinformation out there right now. And frankly, if this is what the campaign is going to be like, people are going to want a source of kind of accurate and unbiased information that doesn't come from either campaign. But it's great to see people from Hilton here tonight, and it's always a pleasure and to see Mr. Massey over there. But I completely understand the frustration that people feel about this expenditure, because anyone in our community can easily look around Fremantle and see something that needs to be fixed, something that needs to be cleaned. And when you think that we're spending $35,000 donating to a political campaign, it gets people a little riled up, and I completely understand that. But again, I'll just reiterate, there's a lot of misinformation that's been floating around. And contrary to what some people like Mr. Luff said here tonight, this is not a donation to a campaign. This is for us to facilitate conversations in our community. And that's why I worked with Councillor Thompson to, put these words before us tonight, because I just wanted to make it absolutely clear that this is not a donation to the campaign. And my conversations with people about this, even people that have told me that they're going to be voting yes when it comes before them, they were very hesitant based on what they've heard about us doing this. But then I simply asked them, I said, do you think that we should hold a town hall discussion? Bring in some speakers and we can talk about what this might mean and what this will do for our community as a whole. They said, yeah, absolutely. That sounds great. I said, well, do you think we should do some activations during NAIDOC week or Reconciliation week? Should we bring in some different things to kind of talk about why this might be something that we want to do across Australia? Those same people said, yeah, that sounds great. I'll come down and do those. I said, well, those things cost money. And so if we're going to be doing these things, we need to have a budget allocation. So, then they would agree, yes, this is the right thing to do, because they were kind of confused that this was going to be a donation to the campaign, and they were, rightfully a little upset about it. So I just wonder why, if we're going to have these activities based around a position that this council's taken, that's going to help activate our CBD and help promote, I would hope, honest and respectful dialogue about what this is going to be, why wouldn't we want to do it? So I'm wholly in support of what's before us right now, and I'm glad to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Lorber. Councillor Archibald.
Thank you. I would just like to ask the mover and the seconder of this motion, and I did, if we could have a very minor change to the words in the very first part. And I just feel that using the word education is a bit sort of inappropriate or not quite right, given that I feel we have a very educated community anyhow. And I'm just wondering if we could say, through the provision of community information, sorry, I can't speak straight and read sideways, by the provision of community information and by raising awareness in the lead up to the referendum. So it's just really, I do believe Fremantle people will make their own choice about this. I have no doubt that there are many people in the community who would like to understand more about the issues that are on the table. And so that's really what I'm saying. So if the mover and the seconder were happy with that change, then that, to me, that would just give it a slightly bit better balance. Yep.
So Councillor Thompson's comfortable with that. I'll check with Councillor Lorber because he was also involved in the drafting. Yep, I'm comfortable with that.
Can I add an additional, suggestion? Just
Well,
wordsmithing.
could I come back then if I need to?
Yes, fair question. yeah. Just in terms of questions on the wording, I just wonder if we also need to add the word support, just to be really clear. Like, so to deliver on its commitment to support the Uluru Statement by, well, true, supporting the Voice to Parliament.
We might just keep it simple and just go firstly to Councillor Archibald's proposal. Yep. Yeah, I think we probably already have the word support in there. All right, we don't need to do we need to formally move an amendment? If you're happy, yep, cool. All right. So we'll go back to Councillor Archibald.
Thank you. I don't really wish to say very much, but I do agree with Councillor Groom that this is part of a very long story, and I think the federal government is going to work out exactly what this will entail, but I think it's a really wonderful signal to give to the Indigenous people of our area that we are supporting this. I think we've supported many sectors of our community over many years, and we've taken up bans against nuclear warships coming into our port. We've done all sorts of things in the past, and to me, this is one that is significant for the Indigenous people of our community. So I wholly support it, and as I said, I do believe Fremantle people will make a very informed and individual choice.
Thank you, Councillor Archibald. Councillor Lang, coming back to you.
Thanks. Following on from Councillor Archibald, I was wondering also if the mover and the seconder would consider adding in the words working group after the Reconciliation Action Plan. I just wanted to make it clear where the call to action was coming from, a document or from our working group. I know it's coming from the document.
Reference group, I'll just clarify.
Oh, sorry, I've copied that from the
it's all good.
I was wondering if there was an opportunity to accept adding that in to clarify that it wasn't simply coming from a document, which I've supported, but also from people in our community.
Councillor Thompson?
I'm happy with that if the director feels that that's correct.
Yep, the director's agreeing that's correct. Okay, Councillor Oliver. Yep, back to you, Councillor Lang.
Thanks. Yeah, this has been a really tough one to debate and think about for the last week and a half. But I wanted to thank Michelle, Director. We had a catch-up yesterday. I wanted to know where this was coming from, whether it was just someone saying, let's do this, it feels great. But speaking with Michelle yesterday, understanding the consultation we've done with the reference group, and that's why I wanted to add that piece in and clarify that before, so sorry for the confusion. And also supporting the Uluru Statement previously, I'm absolutely happy for point 1 to support that. I just wanted to also ask and flag, though, I suspect the room may be split on 1 and 2 as we're voting individually. I did send another note through to the minutes team. If someone wants to vote for point 1 in support of the voice to Parliament, but maybe doesn't want to support point 2, point 1 says that we're going to be having an awareness campaign, and point 2 says we're having an awareness campaign. I was wondering, I sent an email through the minutes team, they might be able to put that up, but making point 1 a lot more clearer that we're supporting a call to action from the working group, reference group, and we're supporting a vote in favour of a voice to Parliament, just leaving it as simple as that. And point 2 then leads on to say we're going to do an awareness campaign anyway. I'm concerned that because we are voting them individually, there's similar points in point 1.
Don't think we can go into a committee workshop at this point in time. So.
I'm just flagging that it could impact on some votes, but I've sent it through. It's only deleting of the last sentence in item 1.
Yeah, I'm not seeing a huge appetite from the mover or proposer of this to go down that path, so I think we might have missed that opportunity. Yeah. Councillor Vusic, you must have a question.
Yes, I do. We're going to spend $35,500 of ratepayers' money. What are we going to get for it? Can you be specific? What are we going to get for it?
Okay, I'm gonna take that as a bit of a rhetorical question, and I'm going to caution against the time that's being used to ask that question.
Excuse me, it's a legitimate question, because it would seem to me,
Councillor Vusic, it is printed in the agenda.
Okay, so basically 35,500 will be used to create awareness for the yes vote.
You've spoken during the debate. Thank you, Councillor Thompson.
And you have not been clear in the way you've presented the material.
Well, if you had any need to clarify what's been presented by officers, you've had 2 weeks since FPOL to do that. So I would ask you to turn off your microphone, Councillor Thompson.
I've asked a legitimate question.
Councillor Thompson has the call.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, very quickly, the reasons for this amendment, there are a number of reasons for it, but the main reason is that it provides greater clarity in relation to the original recommendation on the previous decisions and input that shaped council support for a voice to Parliament. It clarifies the expected time frame indicated in the report of encouraging community engagement and discussion in the context of already supported complementary events. And yes, it does in the report, it does mention a number of actions and objectives which the money would be spent on. Look, the amendment is designed to focus the recommendation on the substance in the report. And I think it was a very good report. And that the substance of the report, the objectives are essentially on community awareness and engagement and information. I think some of the actions objectives listed in the report will provide opportunities for the community to actively engage with the issue of a voice to Parliament, especially if they are integrated with the focus we give to reconciliation and NAIDOC weeks, both of which are part of our normal calendar of events. And I draw attention here to one of the objectives that actually resonated with me, which is that how we can best utilise our resources to curate and install an exhibition to display in the local history centre to be installed for Reconciliation and NAIDOC Week focused on local Aboriginal history and elders who have advocated for change. So I think the issue here is that in the report itself, it's about raising awareness. It's about raising an awareness and community information. So it's not about it, and I don't like the words used, been bandied around of a campaign, because it's not. There may be a yes campaign, but we are not part of the campaign. Providing opportunities for community engagement and awareness is not, as I see it, part of any campaign, but is making provision, adequate provision, to highlight and assist in providing for community engagement. And indeed, I'm sure as part of that community engagement, there will be a range of points of view put forward about a voice to Parliament. And one would hope that it should be that way, because the last thing I want to see in this issue is indifference. So I'm happy to hear the yes, I'm happy to hear the no, but what I don't want to hear is indifference. So I support this. I think that we have to spend some money, because, come on guys, this is a significant event in our national lives. And who better to actually draw it to the attention of our community than at the local level, as I think Councillor Lang pointed out earlier on. So I'm happy to support all 3 of the amended recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Moughlin.
Thank you. And thank you to Councillor Thompson and Councillor Lorver and others who worked on this amendment. And also thanks to Councillor Thompson for his contribution now to the debate. And I spoke at FPOL wholeheartedly supporting the motion that was put up, and even more so this amendment that we're reading tonight and discussing. I want to go back to the Uluru Statement itself and just to the closing aspect, or the closing line of the Uluru Statement. And this is a part that I find actually most powerful about the Uluru Statement itself, and a very moving invitation. And the closing line of the statement is, "We invite you to walk with us in a movement of the Australian people for a better future." I could not sit here tonight and debate this item without considering that invitation, that grace that has come from Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to ask us to contribute to a better future for Australia as a whole and for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. For me, and the point that Councillor Thompson made as well, the opportunity for us to have an education, or sorry, a conversation with our community about what this actually means for a better future for Australia and the opportunity that it presents is once in a lifetime. And as we have heard many times, if this particular referendum doesn't get up, we won't be having this conversation for a very, very long time. And most probably many of us in this room will not get the opportunity to have that conversation at all. And I couldn't go home tonight and speak to my children about what we did in council without having said that I supported this motion and helped to contribute to what is a better future for Australia. Picking up on some of the technicalities that have been spoken about and what we spend our money on, yeah, we make those decisions every week when we are in council, and we're going through a process of setting our budget for future for the next year, and there is an opportunity for elected members to provide their input in there and find a way to spend $35,500 in any way, shape or form they like, and to bring that as part of the conversation as well. Also, just to close, I suppose what I would like to add is we're not telling anyone how to vote as part of this process, but what we are saying is this is what has been requested of the Australian people, from the First Nations people, the first people of Australia, for them to be able to have a voice and to be heard in the discourse that we have in our country.
Thank you, Councillor Wolfram. Councillor Graham.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I did some notes today, so I'm going to take the opportunity to speak and not waste them, so I don't often write notes. But naturally, my first instinct on my council is getting involved in a constitutional decision that's going to be decided by a secret ballot is why. There we go, that's one question. But I'm going to speak primarily to part two because that's the contentious one. Part one is fully supportive, of course. Does it pass the pub test? Is it a waste of money? I mean, these are the questions that I've been asking myself since I've been out in the community. The last couple of weeks I've been to, here we go, Gino's, the Norfolk, Rocco's. And at all these places I've been hit by people saying, don't waste money, don't waste ratepayers' money on this. I don't think I need to tell you what the boys at the bowling club think. Even the family household, very supportive of the voice to Parliament, extremely supportive of it. But Dad, what are you doing wasting money on this? You know, I want lower rates. I want Queen Victoria Street cleaned up. The wife wants more money put towards the disadvantaged women of Fremantle. Now, that's a sensible thing to do, and I must admit Queen Victoria Street does look pretty shabby. But of course, we can't really do all this with the resources that we've got to the best of our ability, and we've been doing it for many years, and we'll continue to do it, and that's just the way it is. Talking on budgets, I mean, we have put aside somewhere in the vicinity $2 to $3 million for new change rooms at South Beach. Is that good value? I don't think so. But there's been no one banging on the door saying, don't spend that amount of money on a facility like that. And I mean, we're talking serious dollars there, aren't we? Budget deliberations, we throw around hundreds of thousands of dollars on projects that don't even cause a stir in the community. Yet certain parts of the community think $35,000 in this instance is excessive. Come on. Yes, $35,000 is a lot of money. We could all do with it in our own back pockets. We could do all with it something in our wards. Very little. A footpath not even is worth $35,000 anymore. But seriously, $35,000 is not going to hurt the bottom line of this budget.
or any budget. And speakers have spoken on that before. As for the philosophy put to me of, well, if you're going to put $35,000 towards a yes vote, put $35,000 towards a no vote. Come on. If you don't want constitutional change, no matter what the issue is, you just vote no. It's as simple as that, isn't it? It doesn't need any campaign. It doesn't need any money spent on it. I mean, it's a no-brainer. I'm just about there, Madam Mayor. Look, what is proposed is not a flag-waving rallies, not how to vote cards, but it's a fairly benign activity list, which is on page 39 for those that haven't seen it, that may just educate us all a little bit better in the plight of what we're trying to achieve here. Do I support Councillor's alternative recommendation? Only time will tell.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. I didn't realise we were going to get any humour during this debate, and you have delivered. Yeah. Thank you. I might get you to turn your mic off now, though. Good on you. Are there further speakers, councillors? Otherwise, I'll close. Councillor Sullivan.
Just starting up. Okay, I'll just be Doug for a while. I'll try and be brief. This is, and I haven't made any notes at all, so this is from the heart, and it is certainly an issue that's been raging in my mind over the last few days, but also obviously for a considerable backstory behind that. Having gone through the process of the Reconciliation Action Plan, having supported wholeheartedly that process, having supported wholeheartedly the 2018 motion as well. And so there is no doubt in my mind which way I'll vote for the referendum and the importance of it and the need for the conversation to happen as locally, street by street, household by household, as is possible. The only frustration I've had with this item, I guess, is that having already done those things, that this item comes before us as if it's almost not core business. Because when I look at History Centre installations in the foyer of this organisation, I don't remember voting for a single one of them. For me, this ought to have been core business if we were talking about that particular item. It should be something that, because we've already passed these very high-level strategic decisions, that opportunities like this would have come forward. If this report had simply said, this is the top-up money that is needed to complete the core business, these are the deliverables, these are the extra panels that we hadn't budgeted for that we want to now deliver, or the extra processes, then it would have been very, very straightforward, I would have thought. But it's presented in a way that actually makes it seem like it's not core business. The other aspect, and even now, and this is why the community, I think, or some people in the community get a little bit upset, is I don't know where this money is going to be spent in detail. So when Councillor Vusic legitimately raised that question, which should have been answered, it's not, there is some scoping ideas in the report, but if we're saying, $5,000, $10,000 is going to go off to a consultant who's going to be doing a bunch of work, and I'm looking at this going, well, isn't that the work that we should just be doing in-house like every day? If there is a marketing thing, if there is a conversations that we do for strategic plans, we do exactly the same types of things, round table, kitchen table conversations and the like. We're already doing those things anyway. So I was disappointed that this didn't just come to us saying, we need a top-up budget for the deliverables, or we don't have particular expertise in this area or that area, and that's why we need to go out and create a budget for it. So there's a frustration from me that we've had to have this debate tonight. Obviously, when your heart is so committed to this particular outcome or these outcomes, this little step, this little tiny step in reconciliation, that if we don't make this little tiny step, as was pointed out, the river might flow very fast and very strong for the next 20 years, and we won't be able to take the next step across this stream. So we have to vote for this, but it's frustrating that it's not core to everything that we're already doing, and I would ask this organisation to make it so, because I think that's what our strategic visions and our decisions so far have already requested.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. If there are no further speakers, I'll close. So if you support Aboriginal people having a voice in decision making, then you should support this decision. This item is the result of listening, consulting with and collaborating with Aboriginal people in Fremantle. It's about giving them a voice and listening to what we hear. Over nearly a decade now, and it's something we should be really proud of, we've had an engaged, active group of Whadjuk elders and representatives who've collaborated with us to develop our reconciliation action plans. The first of these was notably given a stretch RAP status, which is the highest status that you can get for a RAP plan for a local government. We meet quarterly with this group. We meet with them in this room. We meet face to face. We have robust discussions with them. And for the last year, they've been giving us the message they want us to be actively working towards voice, treaty and truth, the three pillars of the Uluru Statement. These will be our guideposts well beyond the current debate on the referendum. However, as soon as the referendum was announced, this group requested that we consider funding education to help people understand why a voice is important and what is being proposed. Like all of us, they are well aware of the difficulty of achieving constitutional change and the potentially divisive nature of these debates. In their view, Freo is the place where we should lead the way on helping people understand how critical this decision is for Aboriginal people. For them, the risk feels so high that this will not succeed. They are very worried about that, and they want Fremantle to lead the way. Will the education, engagement, information, will it cover both sides of the debate? Of course it will. This is a debate, it is a discussion. As those who were there on one day heard Thomas Mayo actively bring up, these are the things that are the criticisms, these are the concerns that are being raised. A lot of the content, to be fair, is likely to be, citizens and civics. Constitutional change is not something that happens frequently enough for us all to be well versed in how it should go. We do this work. This is the work of local government. We don't just do it in Aboriginal engagement, we do it in all areas across inclusion, whether that's multiculturalism, whether that's youth. A real role for local governments is ensuring everyone, no matter what their capability and background, has a say in our society. Are we pro-voice here in Fremantle? Yes, because of our council decision in 2018. This is not some bandwagon, some politically motivated thing. This is a long-held position of council. And in supporting the Uluru Statement, we support the section of it that says, and I quote, "We call for the establishment of a First Nations voice enshrined in the Constitution." So let me be very clear. If someone were to want council to take a different position on this referendum, they would need to move that we no longer support the Uluru Statement. You can't support the, you can't support the Uluru Statement and not support the voice. So here in Freo, we give Aboriginal people a voice through the RAP group. And when they ask us for a very modest amount of money, to put it into context, less than half of what we spend on dog poo bags, closer to a third. To do community education or engagement, in the hope it will help more people see why they should get a voice in decision making at all levels of government, then I'm not going to be the person who tells them that yet again, like they've been told so many times over the last 200 years, what they want is not a priority. I urge you to vote for this request from our Whadjuk Noongar elders to provide this support. All right, I'm going to put it to a vote. All those in favour, part 1. And against part 1. So that's Councillor Busick against. All those in favour, part 2. And against part 2, that's Councillor Busick and Kamada against. All those in favour of part 3. And that looks to be no, and against, and Councillor Busick is against. That is carried. Thank you. All right. I'm going to move to the second planning item on the agenda now, which was the review of the local planning policy 2.25 telecommunications. I'm going to move the officer's recommendation, get a seconder from that from Councillor Jones. Any debate on this item? All right, I'm going to put it to a vote. All those in favour? Yep, and that's unanimous. I'm going to move the officer's recommendation for FPOL 23035, Fremantle Oval, establishment of a principal stakeholder. Did I? Cats. Why did I cross the cats out? Councillor Graham, have you been tampering with my agenda? Sorry. It was an in-joke, but it did make some people laugh. Let's go to the City of Fremantle Cap Management Amendment Local Law item. I will move the officer's recommendation. I'll get a seconder for that one, Councillor Lang. Let's have some debate on that if we wish, or discussion.
I just want to make a quick comment.
Thank you, Councillor Lang.
Not yet. We're not finished with that yet, Jenny. Today, the last couple of weeks, 7:30 has been doing a big story on cat management in Australia, and we interviewed today on that, and expect next week there'll be a story on how individual states are tackling this issue, and the permissions that some state governments are giving to some local governments, with Western Australia and New South Wales lagging the country. So that story will probably come out in the next couple of weeks on 7:30, which is a good news story to get more information out there, and hopefully our government will give us more power to protect wildlife.
Thank you. All right, so we've moved the officer's recommendation. It's been seconded. Any further debate? All those in favour? And against? Councillor Busick is against, and that's carried as we were. Back to Free Oval, I believe. Okay, so I'll move the officer's recommendation. Why can't I bring it up in front of me? Committee recommendation, sorry, which is on page 28, so it shouldn't be that hard to find. Sorry, the rec's on 33. There are some names there. I appreciate that not everyone was at FPOL, but I haven't heard any other people express an interest on being on this group. So just checking that there's no one who wanted to put their name forward and didn't have an opportunity. No? Okay, no takers. Good. It's going to be a great group. All right. So is there any debate on seconder? Councillor Mofflin is wanting to second that. Any debate or discussion on this one? I guess the only thing I wanted to say about this is to be clear that this is a group that represents those people who have a real stake in the current oval. So this is very much about those people who have kind of current live interests in the oval. I think what we're very keen to do is also have a broader reference group, stakeholder reference group, that brings in a bunch of other people who are keen to be involved in the future of the oval. So whether that's Fremantle Hospital as neighbours, whether that's potentially Notre Dame or other educational institutions who who might want to use that space or be involved in the project. So this is not in effect limiting it, but it is setting up the initial structure for the control group that then allows us to then follow that on with the reference group. So just for complete clarity, I wanted to make that clear. All right, all those, I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? That appears to be unanimous. Good. Oh. Okay. FPOL 23038, the high voltage sponsorship request. I'll move the officer's recommendation, seconded by someone. Councillor Archibald. Any debate or discussion on the item? Councillor Groom.
I do have a question, and apologies, I should have probably circulated this one prior, but didn't. So certainly I was intrigued by the amount of car parking space that's allocated to this event, not because I'm upset about loss of revenue, but just because I wondered how on earth it's going to work in terms of where everyone and everything parks, because it's not just about visitors getting to Fremantle to enjoy it, because, yep, on your bike, on the train, on the bus, fantastic, but it's going to bring in so many staff and kind of support organisations and all their vehicles and so forth. So just wondered what the planning is around that, or how we contemplate that in making this decision.
Get the director to give us a response on that.
I might ask the manager, economic development, to respond to that.
And she may need your microphone.
Thank you. Through the chair, High Voltage is a large-scale, significant event coming into Fremantle, but fortunately they are the same team that delivered the Highway to Hell, so the closure of Canning Highway. They're working really closely with Main Roads WA and a Main Roads supplier who is developing all of the traffic management plans that we're currently reviewing through the event approval process. So absolutely considering use of car bays, looking at resident briefings, business briefings and the like. I think it's also, in response to your question, Sue, the use of the car bays is for family zones. So that will be spectator viewing area. And that's why we're looking at using those car bays for that specific purpose. Car parks, rather.
Supplementary question?
You may.
So my question's not about the use of the bays, but how we accommodate other car parking when we've given up so many bays, and there will be huge demand just through staffing the event, let alone patrons to the event. And I guess I'll just add a second question to that. The difference between that and Highway to Hell is that South Fremantle's a little pocket that gets completely isolated by this event, whereas Highway to Hell, a lot of residents had other ways in.
That is exactly one of the things that we're looking at through that traffic management planning process. One of the initial responses that we've looked at is opening Fremantle Park, much like what we do for CBC graduation ceremonies, so utilising that as a car park. But we are actively exploring other options, and the the Perth Festival team are also working with surrounding local governments and exploring other opportunities. It's something that we're actively looking at through that traffic management planning process. The car parks that we're using will be for spectator zones for people, but those car bays, absolutely, we still are looking at solutions for those. Fremantle Park being one of those solutions, but you're right in flagging that there are still other options that we need to consider, and we're actively working with them to devise those solutions. One of the other things we're doing is working with them around other methods of transport. So again, working with the Public Transport Authority around looking at other ways that people can come into Fremantle, not just by vehicle, but either by public transport, by train. So they're working really closely to add on additional carriages so that we have extra services on that day, but also with other bodies such as Westcycle and the like around how we can encourage more sustainable methods of transport for the event.
Thank you. Councillor Grimm, did you wish to speak further?
I guess I feel this agreement's a bit early. So you know, really supportive that we sponsor the event in some way. Just concerned that we don't fully understand the thinking that sits behind the ask and whether that's right. I haven't decided what that means for me yet, but that's been my kind of sense of this.
Councillor Lang.
Thanks. Amy, thank you for answering those questions. At the tail end there, you touched on the PTA discussion, so I wanted to pick up that because the questions were asked about the PTA. Did that cover off for you our communications with PTA? Ian, the question you were wondering about bus routes and so on, did that help answer some of your questions at this point?
We can't really enter into debate, Councillor Lang, with the gallery.
I live smack bang in the middle of this, and I share the concerns that Ian raised. I'm going to have 50,000 people probably in my front yard, and I'm wondering how heavy is this traffic going to be? I'm genuinely nervous about what's happening at the front of my house on South Terrace. As Councillor Groom mentioned, it'd be good to see some more information come through in this event. People walking from South Fremantle trying to get through it. I can't get out of my house if I want to take a vehicle. I'm smack bang in the middle of it, and I'm slightly nervous. I've received one flyer in the mail so far to say we're closing these streets on this date. That was it. And then acknowledging point 2 here that we're a recognised Premier Partner. The flyers have got Perth logos all over them for an event in Fremantle, which was a little bit kick in the face, but I hope we can get point 2. If we are doing this, we can recognise the Premier Partner. That'd be fantastic. If we can clearly articulate what's happening with public transport, because that's, I think, more important than moving cars around. There won't be space for them. So main roads keeps getting mentioned. Maybe PTA can be moved up in that order of discussion. And I guess we're going to wait and see what the state government comes at us next with this item. Yeah, I'm a little bit nervous. I'm living on South Tip.
Councillor Vusic.
I share the sentiment of Councillor Groom and Lang, Councillors Groom and Lang. My question is, we've got a in-kind sponsorship of about $76,000. Have we factored in who is going to pick up the tab for the ovals, restoration of the ovals, the grass, other infrastructure? Is the state government going to be picking up that? Because I should imagine when you have that volume of people coming down, there is bound to be some remedial costs as well.
So I'll take that as a question to the manager about whether our usual event policies apply in terms of bonds, etc., for ovals.
Thank you. So through the chair, through the event approval process, we do retain a bond and cost recovery. So any remediation works that are required as a result of that event are the responsibility of the event organiser. So everything that we've just spoken about is still being assessed through the event approval process. The event's not approved. This item is just to consider the sponsorship.
Thank you. Councillor Sullivan.
Yeah, thanks. As probably the other councillor that is meat in the sandwich for this event, living between South Terrace and Marine Terrace, obviously it is going to be hell for people in South Fremantle and that part of Fremantle. It is more than just the 6 hours, if you like, of the parade element, because there's so much set up and so much takedown. I do worry significantly, and I'm expressing these views because we need to get them sorted at the highest possible level. I do worry that unlike Highway to Hell, and I didn't experience that, I was at another music festival, Highway to Hell is on a main road, and there were escape routes in both directions. This traps, if you like, an entire suburb. But it also brings, as Councillor Lang correctly said, it brings people into streets which aren't fronted by high brick walls and robust environments because they're living on a highway. They're fronted by cute little cottage fences and nice little stepovers to the local tree that's a few metres away and seems convenient. So we are going to have a lot of, I guess, potential issues with it, and I raise those now so that our staff can raise those with the organisers and find the solutions, because I don't want us to be embarrassed by it later. I mean, this is a great event for the city. We should be doing these sorts of things. It fits our strategic vision as a events city. Lastly, the transport is really, really critical. And we've had so many events where I think the state has perhaps failed a little bit in supporting us with events. We have huge blocks of land out on Victoria Quay that might be available. We have the capacity, if you like, to make sure people who are coming from the Premier's own backyard, coming up, by train, getting buses at regular intervals and for hours after the event to and from train stations to shuttle people to and from, so that they actually realise that it's convenient. They're not going to get stranded at 6 p.m. or 6:15 or whatever, and therefore they're going to bring their car, because there just isn't. I just think of South Beach. Normally when we have an event at South Beach, what do? We take Wilson Park and we make it the overflow parking, and it's still nowhere near enough. But this event, of course, is the flip side. We're actually going to use Wilson Park as the event space. Marine Terrace holds a humongous number of cars, and it could hold a lot more. But if it's not going to be available for parking at all, and then the sailing club's not going to be available for parking at all, then you're just taking out all of the best parking that's available for these sort of events. So logistically, I hope the teams and our team can really challenge themselves with these, problems, because I don't want mud on our face. The damage it will do to us holding similar events into the future could be significant. So we have to get it right.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Lorva.
Yeah, well, when I first saw this, where they described the different zones, you had your family zone, you had your electronic dance music zone, and all that, I just figured it was like a laneway kind of festival or a falls festival that would come in and occupy different spaces, and the people would be the ones moving around. When I saw this, I don't even live in the meat sandwich, and I was kind of like, wow, this is they're actually going to do Highway to Hell in South Fremantle, and I just wonder if if we're trying to put the shoe on the wrong foot, like maybe that's not the best formula for this kind of festival for the area. So I hope that we do get this right, and I hope that the state does get it right, because I like share what Councillor Sullivan just said. If it causes a lot of problems, it's going to really damage our ability to do other really amazing things in the future. So I support the festival 100,000%, but I also share those concerns, and just hoping I can chuck some beers in your fridge for the aid, so I can watch it from your front porch.
All right. It looks like everyone's spoken. I guess what Councillor Archibald.
Well,
Sorry.
it's really just a question. I mean, this event is going to be held on the 7th of May this year. Presumably it gets approved via our events policy. I'm thinking it doesn't need to come back to council for approval. It can be assessed under that policy. Is that right? Yeah. So all we're doing here is approving the sponsorship package. I guess if we have some concerns about traffic, perhaps this could be brought to the next IM and we can deal with it there. And I mean, we're not approving this. We're not saying we can or cannot do it. All we're dealing with is sponsorship. So perhaps if the staff could bring this to the next IEM as a matter of urgency, given the time frame, and just that's really it. Thank you.
Yeah, I've definitely written a note that I think a briefing from the event team as well as our own staff to an IEM in the near future would be good, aligned with the community information session, so that we're able to make sure we're ahead of any of these concerns. I guess what I'm hopeful for is that as being a premier partner to this event, we're able to collaborate really productively with the event organisers to make sure that we, get ahead of these issues, manage them proactively, and demonstrate our ability to do large-scale events. Now, what's interesting is we do large-scale events. We do the Street Arts Festival. We do it every year, and as somebody noticed, that's usually when the PTA shut down the trains on the Fremantle line. I guess what I'm optimistic about is by demonstrating Fremantle as an event canvas and actually showing how it needs to work in terms of alternative modes of transport, and particularly the train, but also the connecting buses and everything else, the bicycle parking, all of that stuff. We're actually able to get a stronger partnership for all the events that we do with the state government, so that we're able to say to them, hey guys, you can't close the rail line this weekend because it is Street Arts Festival, and you know that it will not function if you take away public transport. So in a sense, I hope this makes them much more aware of the issues that we face around parking, around the adequacy of public transport. And I also endorse the comment that there are a number of huge spaces, most particularly Victoria Quay, the TAFE parking that's not used at all on weekends, that the state government would have readier access to than we would. And again, the precedent that would be set if we were able to use those for major events like this would be really helpful for the events that we produce and support ourselves. So I'll be supporting the sponsorship, and I'll be paying close attention to the management planning. All right, I'm going to put this one to a vote. All those in favour? And that appears to be unanimous. On to the next items. We're into council reports. Would you like me to go slowly? All right, I am going to give people some time, but can I just find out who would wish to speak on which items that are listed under the council? Items point 12 on 3. 1 and 2. Oh, looks like we're going to do them one by one. Okay, let's get into it. So I'll move the officer's recommendation for budget review 22-23, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Any debate or discussion? All right, we'll put that to a vote. Oh, sorry, Councillor Groom. These microphones don't jump quick enough.
Yeah, I just wanted to note the variance in relation to Fremantle Arts Centre. The scale of that variation is significant, and it's a concern to me that it hasn't been flagged during the year, just because of the scale of it. I have had that conversation with the CEO, and I'm comforted that that will come to audit and risk to have a look at. And certainly, I would be looking for comfort that cost centres of operations such as the Arts Centre are monitored, and we are getting more advice if we're getting that kind of variance. Because when I look at the council contribution to that centre that we approved, this variation is more than 50% of the budget that we approved, and we already kind of under-nard over that scale of that budget. So, yeah, it's of quite concern for me. I note that in the scale of council's position, it's not a risk for us financially, but it does flag for me the way that different areas of business are being monitored.
Thanks, Councillor Groom. All right, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour and against? And that's Councillor Busick against, and that's carried, noting that Councillors Pemberton and Graham are not in the room right now. I'll move the second C item, monthly financial report, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Any questions or discussion? Oh, I'll put that one to the vote. All those in favour and against? Councillor Vusic against. That's carried. I'll move item number 3, Statement of Investments. Pardon me. Seconded by Councillor Thompson. Councillor Moughlin, you had a point
Yeah, I
on
had
this?
a question. And yeah, just for staff in regards to the recent situation with banking failures globally, it would be good, and I recognise the different tiers in which we invest our funds and recognise that we put those into what are known as those tier 1 performers, which are much safer, but it'd be great to get a verbal comment from staff in regards to our process and the, if you like, robustness of those and ensuring our funds are available for us.
Throw that one to Director City Business.
Through the Mayor, we certainly are watching that situation unfold and looking to the regulators to see how they're approaching it, particularly from an Australian perspective. But yeah, for the moment, we are taking, I guess, extra discretion when we're making those investments based on the current situation.
Councillor Pemberton.
Thank you. Look, I've raised this before, and I realise there are extenuating circumstances, and some of which have just been mentioned in the last question. But it is really frustrating and disappointing for a council that has basically committed to divesting from fossil fuels, that 2/3 of our income, well, money being held is currently with fossil fuel lending banking institutions. While I wouldn't want us to be unnecessarily, risky and so on, so I do think the due diligence is really worthwhile. I do also feel like that commitment is being deeply undermined by the length and extent to which we are now no longer actually doing that. So I just guess I would request staff that they kind of look at all available opportunities to be able to get that green section a bit bigger. At the very least 50%, but really, hopefully more. And yeah, but I also acknowledge that we don't want to take risks with ratepayers' funds.
Thank you, Councillor Pemberton. I'll put that one to the vote. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. Final one, schedule of payments, see item 4. I'll move the officer's recommendation, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Any discussion on that one? Okay, I'll put that one to the vote. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. We have no motions of which previous notice has been given, nor urgent business, nor late items, nor confidential business. So I will declare the meeting closed at 8 p.m. on the dot. Thank you.